everyone, and welcome to the Real Steel Podcast, where we talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers. No BS, just the real steel. I'm your host, Jeff. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Polt. Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0, coming off a big win against the Los Angeles Chargers. It's exciting time to be a Steelers fan. Polt, how you doing over there?
I'm doing well, man. It's pretty funny being here in Baltimore and seeing the difference between how you and I feel as Steelers fans and the way everybody in Baltimore feels as Ravens fans. So makes me pumped and makes me super excited to get to talk about the Steelers with you.
I love it. And weird picture of the division, right? No
Oh my
one would have
goodness.
guessed that the Steelers would be 2 games up after 3 games into the season, 3-0. For what it's worth, we can go ahead and mention it. Cincinnati at the bottom of the division, 0-3. They lost a Monday night football game to Washington.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
Baltimore got their first win of the season against the Cowboys, 1-2, as well as the Browns, who went down this week, 1-2 as well. So Steelers sitting in first place, exciting position to be in. And I'll tell you what, I mean, looking at the rest of the schedule here, and from what I'm reading, there's a potential the Steelers could really take advantage of the front half of the schedule. You know, we can capitalize on a lot of home games. We have on paper some weaker opponents.
Yeah.
Before, as we talked about in previous episodes, the back half of our schedule really starts to firm up and gets pretty tough. So, you know, we're riding right now. I think it's pretty clear the Steelers are improving every week as the season goes on, and I'm just excited to break down the Steelers game and talk about what's next.
Yeah, I mean, we like you said early on, we had talked preseason that this is the time where we have to make some noise. We have a tough end of the schedule, at least we thought going in. Maybe not after the first couple of weeks, but so far so good, and we just got to keep it rolling. So yeah, I'm excited to. Hey, you predicted this game would have been a loss. I predicted it was a win, and I'm glad that I was right and you were wrong for many reasons.
Well, I'm glad you're right too.
I know. Yeah.
I can't go without saying that. And you know, sometimes you just got to play the cards a little bit safer, I guess, knowing the Steelers. But all
Yeah.
credit to Mike Tomlin here. Honestly, I mean, he gets a lot of backlash, but I think this is a well-coached team this year, and I think it's showing. So
Yeah. I completely agree.
let's go ahead and break down the game a little bit, maybe talk about where we stand, and then, of course, we'll go ahead and preview the next game against the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe we'll go through this chunk by chunk, I think is a good way we can approach this. Really, what I think is kind of a good way to start out here is this: both the Steelers and the Chargers had a pretty slow start in the first quarter of this game.
Yeah.
Two, three, and outs for each team. We kicked off, held the Chargers, forced them to punt 3 and out. They did the same to us. We did it again, and they did it again. So 4 3 and outs to open the game, and then next thing you know, things start to open up a little bit. The Chargers put together a 5-play, 59-yard touchdown that's capitalized by a 27-yard pass from Justin Herbert to Quentin Johnson. Then the Steelers come out and we score a touchdown as well. 13-play, 70-yard drive. Took up a pretty significant amount of time, and that was ultimately a Justin Fields scramble into the end zone that put us at 7-7. So what's your take on kind of this first part of the game, kind of taking us into the second quarter here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I guess, going into the game, and I might have mentioned this last week, that I was a bit. I thought that our run defense would be tested, and this is supposedly one of the best running offenses in the league coming into the game. And right off the bat, I mean, we started to stuff them. First 2 plays of the game, two-yard runs for J.K. Dobbins. They come back and don't even run the ball the second drive because we just kept stuffing them. And I know on their touchdown drive they had 18 yards rushing or 19 yards rushing, but it ended with a blown coverage. You'll have that every so often. It looked worse than it really was. I think they just called a really good play. If you listen to what Minka Fitzpatrick said, nobody really blew a coverage. It was just a coverage beater. And so it's the NFL, that will happen. But the way we responded is, I think, really what got me going. We had a 13-play,
13.
70-yard drive. I mean, what a response. 7.5 minutes to come back and tie up the game. I mean, that's not something we've seen. I mean, sure, we always on touchdown drives in the past couple of years have had long touchdown drives, but we usually don't respond in that way. We kind of took command of the game, I feel like, at that point, and I thought that was really encouraging.
Yeah, that Chargers opening touchdown drive, not opening for the game, but their first points on the
Yeah,
board, I think slipped away from us a little bit. If you go back and watch, and Mike Tomlin mentioned this today, that 13-yard run to J.K. Dobbins, we actually had 10 men on the field.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so that was kind of a little bit of a sloppy play there. And, the next play, 1st and 10, they only ran for a yard, but the
Yeah,
play following was the touchdown. So, like you said, I mean, it did look like blown coverage, but, that's what it's going to be like in the NFL playing against, Justin Herbert is a good passing quarterback, and
yeah,
Quentin Johnson,
absolutely.
we talked about at the end of last episode, kind of a slow start for him in the NFL, but he's a first round pick for the Chargers and has a lot of talent. So he's been stepping up as of late. And so really, I think, came as no surprise that they were able to put some
Yeah.
points on the board. But I totally agree. Being able to go down and answer in terms of what you said was really, really cool. And I think that drive was kind of starting to see Justin Fields really take a hold of the game.
Yeah.
He looks really composed as a quarterback. So it was very encouraging to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, and it looks like he hit one, two, three, four, five different, six different receivers on that drive as well, which is kind of crazy. I didn't even know we had six different pass catchers on the team that would be able to do something, but we did. And so, yeah, it was, spreading the ball around and letting guys make plays, which is good. But that's what you should do. I mean, let your playmakers make plays, no matter how good or bad they are, let them try. So, yeah, thought a great response and yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. We had 8 players that registered a reception in this game. Jalen Warren, Connor Hayward, Cordell Patterson, Najee, Scotty Miller, Pat Fryermuth, George Pickens, Calvin Austin. Obviously, a big show from Calvin Austin and even George Pickens, which we'll talk about here shortly. But Scotty Miller's contributions early on, I think, were pretty cool to see. Number 13, that was a fun to watch him run around, and I think he's making good contributions. But the rest of the half really kind of ended on a dud. I think not much kind of came to be. We
Yeah.
did let up a field goal, kind of a long sustained drive from the Chargers, 10-7, but that's where we ended at the half. But sure enough, we're able to open up the half, receiving the ball and get on the board again with another field goal. So 10-10 is kind of what we were looking at before. I think you could say we took the game and ran with it in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, even just to touch on that last drive of the first half when we missed the 62-yard field goal. Sorry, Boz, he didn't hit your over in the third game of the year. But again, that to me was me feeling better about the Steelers again
Me
because
too.
typically in this scenario we had 44 seconds. I believe we had one timeout left. We were on our own 14, and we didn't just kneel the ball or run the ball and run the clock out. We actually were aggressive and went for it and threw 5 straight passes to get into their 44 and kick a 62-yarder. But to be honest with you, he had one of his best throws of the games there to George Pickens, if you
Hmm.
remember, down in the middle, and then had a pass to Pat Fryermuth over the middle that probably would have put us in very manageable field goal range that Pat dropped. And
Yeah.
so I think we could have had it tied 10-10 going into the half, but they didn't let that miss or hold them back, and they came right out in the second half and put points on the board, which I think was a huge statement.
Yeah, tied it up, right? 10-10. Following that, Chargers' next 4 drives, punt, 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 compared to the Steelers, who we had that one interception play that kind of got bounced around. Justin Fields essentially said he shouldn't have thrown that ball, was up in
Yeah.
the air for a while. So that is a turnover on his stat sheet. But beyond that, a field goal touchdown, and then something that the Steelers haven't been able to do in a while is own the clock and ice the game. And that's how our last drive ended, a 10-play, 65-yard drive that took about 4 or 5 minutes up of time and really sealed the game for us, which I think was something special to watch. We haven't seen that happen a lot. And man, when was the last time we won by multiple scores in a game? It seems like it's been a while.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, it didn't even feel like that much of a heart attack, which was good. I mean, I think we have to mention though, partly where the game changed was, well, I mean, first of all, like you mentioned, we got the ball on their 34 or their 41 after we pinned them deep on a kickoff. They had a messed up kickoff, and then we had forced a short punt after a sack, and we got the ball on the 41, and Justin Fields makes his first mistake of the year.
Hmm.
And I think you could say, I mean, there's two things that happened there. First of all, Justin Fields threw a pick, which wasn't a good decision, but he eventually bounced back, which was good to see. But also, we knocked Justin Herbert out of the game, and you could tell once that happened, there was no life on the Chargers side of the ball on offense. So I think that was the key moment in the game, probably the Nick Herbig sack on Justin Herbert, and then honestly, us just forcing a 3-and-out after the interception to get the ball back, and from there, like you said, we took over, including that last 5-minute drive to end the game. A 5-minute drive to end the game is pretty impressive, and it
Yeah.
was good to see.
Yeah, I think Fields showed a lot of poise, kind of being able to bounce back after that interception,
Yeah,
knowing he's played pretty cleanly, not flashily, but if that's a word, flashily, not
good enough.
flashy's a word. I don't
Yeah,
know if
flashy's a
flashily is,
word.
but he played pretty clean, right, leading up to this turnover and a good way to bounce back. I think what was just kind of looking at some team stats here, I think it's pretty impressive beyond just the 20-10 score. First downs was also 20-10. Steelers 20, Chargers 10. We ran 65 total plays to the Chargers 45 total plays. Time of possession, again, the Steelers in the lead there. 346 yards to 168 total yards for the Chargers. We can talk about, man, what the Steelers were able to do in the second half of the game with over 200 yards and holding the Chargers actually to negative offensive yards in the second
Yeah,
half of the game. 114 rushing yards on the ground compared to 61 for the Chargers. J.K. Dobbins entered the Chargers running back as one of the top, if not maybe the leading rusher in the league.
he was averaging 9.9 yards a carry, and in this game, I believe he averaged 2 point. Give me a second. He averaged a little over 2 yards a carry, and he was averaging almost 10 a carry coming in. I mean, I think we just start with the defense right here. They had
Mm-hmm.
15 plays against them in the second half, and like you said, -5 yards, I believe. But that included the Chargers had an 18-yard play in that quarter or in the second half, and we still held them to negative yards on 15 plays. I mean, it's just it's outstanding. I think that we also allowed 3 or 10 points or fewer um, for the first time in 50 years in the first 3 games of the season. So another dominant outing. We've allowed 26 total points this season, which is the best in the league.
Yeah.
It's just our defense just looks smothering and really, really good.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's encouraging here too, that maybe is just a little bit beyond the stat sheet, is we didn't force a turnover in this game. We didn't win the turnover battle, right? Because we had that Justin Fields interception, and
Yeah.
even with that, to our detriment, we were still able to kind of play a dominant defensive game, and so that stands out to me too. That you know. You lose the turnover battle. Granted, it's just by one. You don't even force any turnovers, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, you're able to put out a really, really strong defensive performance. So that was really, really cool to me. I mean, you mentioned, I think, a couple guys, but really solid game, I think, from our linebacking core.
Yeah.
Our secondary played pretty well. Defensive line played really well.
Defensive line
Um,
played awesome.
yeah, it was just a pretty holistic game all around for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, talk about true Steelers defense. This is kind of what you ask for.
Yeah, I mean, like you said previously, they were one of the top rushing teams coming in. They had 20 carries for 61 yards. I mean, our D line, our linebacking core were all over the rushes. I mean, if you look at all the videos, the corners were getting involved. Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson. I think you and I texted about that during the game. This year it seems like our DBs are way more willing to get in there and tackle and throw their body around, which is a really, really important thing. I just thought as a whole that defense played outstanding. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it, because I know we could talk moving forward injuries, but there were
Hmm.
some big time injuries in this game. Corey Trice went out with a hamstring injury.
Yep.
He's now on IR. Um, uh, Help me out here. I lost Alex Highsmith. Sorry, I lost
Hi,
my train of
Smith.
thought there.
Yep.
Alex Highsmith went out with a groin injury. I think he's out at least a couple weeks. I mean, we had some big time. Dante Jackson went in and out of the game, I believe. I mean, we had a couple guys get injured, and we just next man up, and we had no issues.
Yeah, certainly Nick Herbig was an incredible next man up
Yeah,
in this game. Just a really, really strong performance from Nick Herbig. 3 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 tackles for loss. Saw a tweet that said, "Gosh, we have to have the best, third outside linebacker in the NFL with Nick Herbig behind Alex Highsmith and T.J. Watt. The dude is dominant."
I mean, it's crazy when you lose a double-digit sack guy like Alex Highsmith. You think you would take a step back, and most teams do. We
Hmm.
don't. We honestly maybe arguably get better. I mean, Nick Herbig is all over the ball. He only had 8 pass rush snaps and still had the 2 sacks. I mean, he
Two snacks.
snacks,
He was
basically
hungry.
snacks, right? He was
Yeah.
hungry for the quarterback. I mean, it's pretty impressive though, and like I said, he changed the game. He had the strip sack on Justin Herbert that ended up ultimately injuring his ankle again, and he was just all over the ball. He was going against Rashawn Slater, who's one of the top tackles in the NFL, a young guy, and that actually he played in the Big Ten, which is pretty funny, Northwestern versus Wisconsin, and he won that battle as Wisconsin tends to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yeah, Nick Herbig has been unbelievable, and I know I said Alex Highsmith's out a couple weeks. Looks like a groin injury, similar to James Daniels last year, who missed 2 weeks. So
Hmm.
we're hoping 2 weeks, but I'm not worried about Nick Herbig stepping in. Maybe the depth behind him and TJ Watt I'm a little worried about, but I'm not worried about Nick Herbig having to step in and start.
Yeah, two QB hits too. Can't forget that from Nick Herbig. So
True.
incredible stat line. I think at least from where I'll round out the defense talk, Pittsburgh Steelers defense so far this season, first in yards allowed, 229, first in third down conversion rate, 22%, and first in points allowed per game, 8.7. So
Third in rushing defense and sixth in passing defense.
yeah. And say what you want about the teams we played, right? Say what you want about, Justin Herbert getting hurt, a rookie Bo Nix quarterback, and Kirk Cousins coming off of his Achilles. You look at what some of these teams have done so far. The Chargers coming into this game were 2-0. The Falcons look a lot better having beat the Eagles. They played the Chiefs really, really well this week. Honestly, could have and should have came away with the game if not for some, questionable calls by officials, which apparently I talk about too much, so I'll get off my high horse there. And the other game, Denver, Bo Nix put together a really, really nice game this past week, giving the Broncos their first win of the season. So, yeah, say what you want. What you want. I mean, the Steelers are always going to have haters here. People are going to call us pretenders. Lots
Yeah.
going on in the media, but nonetheless, 3-0 Pittsburgh Steelers after a dominant performance. The defense is a real deal, and I think the offense is improving a lot.
Yeah, we got to touch on. I'll just touch on it too. It is very frustrating just to hear that. Oh, who have you played? When for other teams, nobody cares. I mean, it's not our fault that the Falcons, held back Kirk Cousins because they thought he was still hurt. They look great right now. The Bengals or the Broncos just killed the Bucks. I mean, I don't know. The Chargers were the number one defense coming in. I don't know what more we need to prove. But that's okay. Keep doubting us, and I think the team really is going to rise to that occasion. So we'll see how it does moving forward, but I agree. I think the offense as a whole is getting better week by week.
Okay, and I can't go without mentioning special team shout out to Corliss Waitman. Boz 2 for 3 in field goals. He missed the long 62-yarder.
Yeah.
Maybe missed it a yard or so short, but also
Yeah.
directionally was off. Nonetheless, I think he still has the leg to kick a 60-yarder, maybe in a dome or something, or if the
Yeah.
wind's blowing his direction. And I hope and think that Tomlin will still give him the chance to do that later in the season. But Corliss Waitman, man, talk about a guy who's just stepped up. Really, really solid punting performance. 3 punts for 156 yards, so averaging over, I guess, 52 yards. Really, really great to have a
Yeah.
plug and play guy that you don't even have to talk about.
Yeah.
Tomlin acknowledged his contributions early on in the press conference, as well as a few other guys on the special teams unit. So when you're playing really great football at all three phases, there's not a lot to complain about.
No, yeah, and not having to talk about punting a lot is really good. I will say before we move on, I did miss a key stat on defense that I think is really important. The run defense, like I mentioned, was a concern. It wasn't a concern at all. On 6 first down carries, J.K. Dobbins gained 7 total yards. So we were keeping them behind the sticks. They weren't getting ahead of the downs as they should have, and it made it tough on them, long third downs. So, yeah, super happy about that.
Okay, where do you want to go? Do you want to cover a little bit more in terms of the game, or you want to jump into balls of steel, or what are you thinking?
I feel like we should talk about the offense. The offense as a whole, I think the first half was difficult for us to run the ball. We really struggled, and let me see if I can find the stat. But we did not run the ball. Here it is. We had the first 9 times we carried the ball, we had 14 yards, and our longest run was a run of 5. And Najee and Jalen had 5 carries for 6 yards. It wasn't very good. But then in the second half, we ended up running the ball for 100 yards, almost all in the fourth quarter. and I think we ended the game with, let me see, 114. So
Yep.
basically all in the second half. So whatever adjustments they made at halftime obviously made a big difference. Our offense was more dynamic in the second half. We put up a lot more yards, and the offensive line just looked better in the second half. So I thought that was interesting. We couldn't run the ball for anything. I did think Najee Harris played a great game.
Hmm.
The stats might not show it, but he really ran hard, and I thought that he got a lot more yards than he should have. So I don't know if the analytics show that or not, but I was super impressed with him. I know that he came out banged up as well, but yeah, 18 for 70 with having like 9 yards in the first half is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned a prove it year for Najee, and I think he's doing exactly that. And gosh, I really hope the Pittsburgh Steelers pay
Yeah,
Najee whatever he needs. One thing I want to talk about here in terms of kind of the rushing game is I found a really, really interesting stat that this was the lowest scramble rate of Justin Fields' entire career
yep,
in Sunday's win, and some would argue it's one of his best games. Again, not being flashy, but and even with an interception, but from a controlled perspective, scrambled on just one of 35 dropbacks. So it's about 3%, which is again the lowest scramble rate of his career. He ended
yeah.
the game with only I think 6 rushing yards, which is a lot lower given you go into any of the betting apps and a lot of his over under props are probably going to be floating around 40 yards. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty interesting stat, I think. I saw something that said leading up to this game, Fields was just a few yards behind Cordell Stewart in
Mm,
terms of total rushing yards for a Steelers quarterback in their first 2 games of any season. So good company there for Justin Fields. Obviously, that's a little bit deflated now, given just 6 yards in this game. But nonetheless, he's a dual threat quarterback that knows when to use his legs, right?
yeah.
That's
And
what I'm
and
saying.
and in the past, one of the knocks on him is that he'd sit in the pocket and maybe give up too early on a pass player, give up too early on a couple routes, and just take off and run. And you can tell he's made a concerted effort not to do that this year. He's sitting in the pocket. He's taking hits. He's seen the pressure and not just running away, kind of like we used to yell about with Kenny Pickett, just spin
Hmm.
out and scramble. Justin Fields is staying in the pocket and trying to be a pocket passer. I mean, you said he had 6 yards. Yeah, he had 6 carries for 6 yards, and that included the 5 yard touchdown run that was in the second quarter. So one scramble in a passing situation is crazy for a guy like Justin Fields with his talent running the ball, but it was successful, and I think that's showing just how big of improvements he's making as a pocket passer and as a quarterback as a whole, which is I think a really really big deal for us.
Absolutely. Now, give a little love to the offensive line. I know you
Yeah,
mentioned that. PFF, we talk about for what it's worth. I don't know the reliability of it, and they tend to. Seems like they have a bias against the Steelers, but maybe not. Again, for what it's worth, James Daniels and Zach Frazier, two of the top three highest graded offensive linemen
yeah,
in Week 3. Let me tell you what, man. I really think we found an absolute stud in Zach Frazier. I think there's a couple things that still need to be cleaned up in terms of the snapping. There's still some things that need sorted out there, but
yeah.
he's a dog, and I think that I read something saying that Marquise Pouncey
Yep,
either talked to him
he did.
or bought into him, and Zach Frazier is having a hell of a start to his career, and I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler in the future for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, so Marquise Pouncey was on Big Ben's podcast, Football and with Ben, on Monday, and he talked about how the Steelers brought him in to evaluate and talk
Hmm.
to Zach Frazier, and he said after that, after meeting him with him and watching him play, that he 100% signs off with him as the starting center moving forward, which is pretty big praise out of maybe a Hall of Fame center,
Yeah.
and definitely the best Steelers center in the last 10 years. But on that note, I mean, he was the second highest graded PFF rookie this week, only
Yeah.
behind Jaden Daniels of the Commanders, which is pretty impressive. And James Daniels was the highest graded offensive lineman in the entire NFL, and Zach Frazier was three right behind that. So, like you said, really really good play from the offensive line. I think if you have time and you're on Twitter or X, I think it's worth going to watch Brian Baldinger, Baldy's breakdowns. He
Hmm.
loves Zach Frazier. Actually, changed his name in his mind to Matt Frazier because it's crazy how much that he says he likes to throw guys to the mat. I mean, Zach Frazier's always on the ground on top of his block, and it's impressive what he's doing so early in his career. If you think about it, the Steeler way, we talked about this last year with Joey Porter Jr., they don't like to start rookies right off the bat.
Right.
And they were forced into it due to injury this year, and I think it's one of the best things that could have happened to this team, and really, really impressed with him. I think we also got to mention Mason McCormick got into the game,
Yep.
so another rookie lineman. He came in for, let me find his snap count here. It was only a few plays. He played, actually looks like he played 25 snaps offensively. So 37%. He spelled Spencer Anderson a little bit, who played 56% or 56 snaps. So cool to see him play. I think he looked good in the little bit he played. And
a good bounce back game for Broderick Jones too.
yes, thank you. You should
Clean
mention
game.
that.
Clean game from him after the penalties that we saw from him the week prior, and Mike Tomlin went ahead and said, it's what we expected with him to be able to bounce back, and it's exactly what we got. So just great contributions all around by this offensive line. I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were the reason we had the 100 yards rushing in the second half. So big props to them. Also, I guess we should give props to Cordero Patterson. I mean, we should talk about the running back room, I guess. I feel like Jalen Warren's definitely hurt, and I think he re-aggravated something during that game. He had an MRI today, I believe. He had some kind of scan that I think came back okay, but they don't really know his status. So Cordero Patterson came in 4 rushes, 33 yards with a 14-yard
Ran hard
run.
at the end. Yeah.
Ran really hard at the end and had a couple key runs because Najee, I think, got banged up at the end of the game too. So Patterson had to close out the game until the long run by Najee. But it's kind of a weapon to have Cordero Patterson, right? As everybody jokes, the Joker position in Atlanta, but he's a good player and he's very versatile and can be used all over the field.
Yep. Totally agree. Mike Tomlin, actually, I said Mike Tomlin's name probably 5 times, but I just listened to his press conference about 15 minutes before we started talking. Loves the versatility out of guys when they have position flexibility.
Yeah.
Talk about Broderick Jones, someone on the offensive line who can kind of swing to the right side or the left side. Cordell Patterson's a really great example of that. Someone who's been relatively quiet this year, but has good position flexibility. Connor Hayward too, fullback and tight end utilization. So, if Jalen Warren perhaps is out, maybe we do see a little bit more Connor Hayward, a little more Cordell Patterson, as you mentioned. So good shout out there. I think key depth piece. I'm excited that Cordell Patterson has been able to contribute pretty early on for the Steelers. So.
Yeah, 4 rushes, 33 yards, 3 catches on 5 targets for 15. So
good selling.
Yeah, not bad out of your third string running back / backup receiver. So yeah, really big.
So you wanna start negative and give a jag off of the week here?
Yeah, I could do that.
It's tough to do. I think honestly it's tough to do, and I will say I got a little bit of hate that I do this. I give it to the officials too many times, which, to be fair, we've only had 1 episode and we gave 2, and I gave 1 to the officials, and I acknowledge that.
True.
And I won't do it as much moving forward. But if they really deserve it, they have to get it.
If they deserve it, they deserve it. I mean, there's not much you can do about that.
But I also called you out too, because you're out here giving it to freaking, Jim Harbaugh's daughter's cousin, right? For whatever. So I'm gonna make a little bit of an effort to at least be a little bit more Steelers focused in terms of a player or something that's going on, because I did want to give it to Colin Cowherd this week, because Colin Cowherd is out here talking about how he's happy for Justin Fields, but he's not impressed with him, and the Steelers aren't really anything flashy. So I'm going to withhold from that, but that's my honorable mention. I'll give you the floor. That's a lot. Sorry.
No. That's fine. I'm gonna listen to your advice, and I'm gonna give it to a Steelers player. I'm gonna give it to Van Jefferson.
Okay.
Coming into the year, the talk out of camp was he looked really good, and he was going to be a fine number 2, and we didn't need a number 2 receiver because we had Van Jefferson. Well, Van Jefferson played 11 snaps on offense, and I don't know if he got hurt or what it was, but he played 11 snaps, and Scotty Miller played 38.
Wow.
Scotty Miller was like the 4th or 5th guy on the depth chart coming into the year. Van Jefferson's stats on the year are 5 targets for 3 catches and 15 yards. Plus, he has that really bad offensive pass interference. I mean, ticky-tacky, but offensive interference on the George Pickens touchdown in the Denver game. He blew some blocks on the screen pass in the Atlanta game. I just honestly, to this point, I think Van Jefferson's my jagoff for the year, but I'll definitely give it to him for week 3. He's just non-existent, and it's a position we need some help, and he's not providing it. So Van Jefferson is my jagoff of week 3.
I like that. That's a good one. I should have let you kind of round it out here because I feel like mine is still a little
It's okay.
I don't know, ticky tacky, but it's not rooted in any stats here. This is fully based on just me watching the game and when I yell at the TV, which I did. I don't think I did that much, but maybe when I got a little bit frustrated and
Yeah.
my jagoff of the week is going to go to, I don't know if it should be to Arthur Smith. It's not to Arthur Smith. I think he is calling good games, but I'm going to call it to a specific type of play, and it's a toss play to Najee
Uh-huh.
Harris, which I don't know how many times happened in this game, but I would say at least more than one hand than I can count on one hand. I think we had at least
Yeah.
5 toss plays to Najee. And we talked about this in previous seasons. Najee is not a speed back. He's a downhill power back, and he's not the guy that needs to get to the outside or to the perimeter and run hard. Najee runs his best when he's a downhill runner, and
Yeah.
I'm a little bit frustrated with the constant toss plays to Najee because they're not utilizing him in the way that he can be utilized. And so that's my jag off of the week is the excessive amount of toss plays, seemingly excessive amount of toss plays. Because again, I don't have any stats here. This is just going on from me watching the game.
Yeah, and I tried to get some stats on the while you were talking there. I was not able to, but I completely agree. I think those were most of our negative runs were toss plays, and Najee's not built for it. The offensive line isn't built for it. This offensive line wants to maul you over. They want to get up in your face and run downhill at you. Toss play is not allowing them to do that. I get. I don't know if I really understand it at all. Maybe if it's Jalen Warren or even Cordero Patterson, but not with Najee Harris. And yeah, that one really grounded my gears as well. They got away from it in the second half, which was good. But that's a good jagoff.
Thanks. I'll let you go balls of steel here because I'm between quite a few guys. I think there's a few folks that are pretty deserving of it.
All right, I think I'm gonna give you the layup, and I'm gonna take a guy that I think we both have had a lot of faith in and are really impressed with how he's come together this year. It's got to be Calvin Austin for me.
Okay.
Calvin
Good pick.
Austin, 5 targets, 4 catches, 95 yards, a touchdown, that 55-yard touchdown to give us the lead, or maybe not to give us the lead, but to really seal the game in what it was. And I know that was an awesome throw by Justin Fields to get it in there, but it was also an awesome route by Calvin Austin to just sit in that zone and take it and then put on the afterburners and beat the rest of the team. He kind of said that as soon as he turned his head, he knew he was gone. He was thinking nothing but touchdown. And to have that kind of speed and be able to utilize it, I think is really important. And he's not just catching deep balls like that. Like last year, I think he had a couple deep touchdown passes. He's not doing that. He's catching on the last drive of the first half to set up the field with the
Hmm.
eventual miss by Boswell. He caught that 6 yard out route. I mean, he's catching stuff at the sticks, which is what you need out of a slot receiver. So I think Calvin Austin has been really good. Maybe not the numbers. The numbers aren't crazy, but I think he's been a very integral part to this team.
I love him. He's fun to watch too.
He is.
I like that pick. Okay, I'm gonna take your layup, but with that, I just have to say, in terms of maybe honorable mentions, and I don't know if it's cool that we do this or not, but
I have one.
I really think Patrick Queen played a really solid game, and he
Yeah.
led our team in tackles, but just I think we talked about this last week, but it's just so cool to have a guy like this that's you see him come in contact with someone and they go down.
Yeah.
He played a really solid game, and so I don't want to go without saying Patrick Queen's name here, but I'll take the layup. I'm going to give it to Nick Herbig. I mean, we already mentioned it. Three tackles, two quarterback hits, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Just an all around great game from someone to step up into this role as a third outside linebacker.
95.4 pass rushing grade, 3 pressures, 2 sacks, 50% pass rush win rate in 8 snaps. 8 pass rushing snaps, and he still got 2 tackles, including a forced fumble. I mean, there's just not enough you can say about the guy. He's absolutely killing it. To Patrick Queen, though, I will mention, I think you might have given him your balls of steel if he caught that interception.
I think
He
so. I think I would have.
that's gonna haunt him, so hopefully he can come back and get one. I just want to throw in a quick honorable mention. If it wasn't for the Calvin Austin touchdown, I think this guy would have got my balls of steel. And to be honest with you, it's Scotty Miller. I
Yeah.
think Scotty Miller. So if you looked at the depth chart the roster coming in this past week, Roman Wilson was I guess a healthy and active. We only had four receivers, and they said the reason for that was they wanted an extra defensive lineman because they knew it was going to be a battle in the trenches running the ball by the Chargers. Well, that means Scotty Miller was one of the four offensive one of the four receivers, and he played the second most snaps out of receivers. He played 38, only 12 behind George Pickens, and I think in the first half he had a couple very very key catches, especially on that touchdown drive with the Justin Fields run to keep the drive going. So I think Scotty Miller is worth mentioning as an honorable mention. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but I think he deserves some praise there. 2 catches, 31 yards.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I'm happy with where Scotty is. I think that's, again, I mentioned at the beginning, like great contributions from a guy like that you wouldn't expect to step up. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about just for a little bit where we sit right now. I want to throw a question at you. I actually got a couple listener questions here.
Oh,
We
nice.
can do that, and then we can maybe move into, the Colts preview. Before we do that, do you have any stats or any quotes of the week you want to throw out there? Because I do. Um,
I think I can lead you right into maybe your stat of the week if I know what yours is going to be. Mine's going to be about the 3-0 start, but not about the Steelers past, about the NFL history. Teams that have gone 3-0 have made the playoffs 64% of the time since 1990. Also, ESPN Power Index has us having an 80% chance of making the playoffs, 53.7% chance of winning the AFC North, and a 4% chance of winning the Super Bowl. It's week 3. Let's hold our horse. Let's not, go too crazy. But starting 3-0 in the NFL is a really big deal statistically. So I think that's definitely something to mention.
yeah, I like that, and I'll elaborate on that in a second here. Because that does kind of clue me into something I want to talk about. The one thing I sent you on Twitter was actually wrong. It said the last times the Steelers went 3-0, we went to the Super Bowl and blah blah blah. Yeah, I went back and I looked at all those different things, and that's wrong. So I'll get there in just a second, but. I just want to give you my quote of the week, and I don't have
Yeah.
the exact quote. I'm trying to find it, but the quote of the week here is Bill Belichick, legendary Patriots head coach who we despise. Um,
I don't, but
I despise. Basically said everyone's out here questioning the Steelers quarterback situation, and we might have the best one in the NFL, which I thought was really, really cool of him to acknowledge. Justin Fields again, not to harp on this, but really, really clean performance that we're seeing out of Justin Fields. It's fun to watch him play. Great praise from Tony Romo in this game in terms of him commentating. We really
man,
saw
yeah.
kind of the leash get a little bit longer, right? Utilization of the middle of the field with that Calvin Austin play and playing really great football. So I just thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, if you give me 2 seconds, I think I have the quote. He said Pittsburgh might have the best quarterback situation in the league. You have an experienced guy behind Justin Fields if you need him. I mean, Bill Belichick, maybe one of the best coaches of all time, is sold on Justin Fields, and Tony Romo, who people are saying is one of the best announcers in the game right now, was singing the praises of Justin Fields, saying how well he developed. So I completely agree. It seems to be all positive on that front.
For sure. Okay, so let me just really quickly go through injuries, and then I'm going to take you to one other thing, the listener questions, and then we'll preview that game, maybe wrap up in about 10 minutes. But
Sounds
just for
good.
what it's worth to kind of go through this, Michael Pruitt, Alex Highsmith, and Corey Trice, you had mentioned all three of those guys are probably a little bit more long sustained injury and probably will be out for maybe a more extended period of time.
Corey Trice on IR, so he is out at least 4.
4 weeks minimum. The other thing that we didn't really get to talk about is we did unfortunately lose Choi Fatanu to injured reserve. He had a knee injury,
Yeah.
and the report is that he's probably going to miss the entire regular season. If we make playoffs, there's a chance he could come back and play, but that's a big question mark right there.
We
And then,
just signed a tackle, if you were going to mention that. We signed a
okay,
tackle
yep,
from
yep.
somebody's practice squad, but he's a veteran.
Okay, good stuff. And then in terms of guys that I think you could probably consider to be questionable, Jalen Warren, like we said, Isaac Seumalo is really working to come back, and we're at this same purgatory type place with Russell Wilson. He's listed as limited. It's providing a lot of gray area when Mike Tomlin gets asked the question of, are you going to name a starter or whatever, and we're kind of
Yeah.
proceeding forward with Justin Fields because he's the most healthy, and we're treating him to kind of be the starter. So no firm direction there from Mike Tomlin. Russell Wilson still is kind of limited. So that's that.
You see me
Um,
shaking my head. I just want him to announce it. I know he's
Me
doing
too.
some gamesmanship, but I want him to announce it. I will mention that tackles Calvin Anderson is his name, and we also signed James Pierre was called up from the practice squad for this game. We signed him now to the active roster, so he will be with the team moving forward.
Okay, cool. So good stuff to cover there. I want to transition here before we do the listener questions into a new segment that's called Science Lesson. And this is for you. I'm
Okay.
going to give you a little bit of a science lesson here, and maybe you'll come to appreciate it. So, there's a thing we do in the meteorological community, and it's called analog forecasting. Okay.
Okay.
Analog forecasting is essentially looking at previous years, is probably a great way to describe this, looking at previous years that compare well to how things are right now, and essentially looking at those as you know, good marks in history in terms of this is what could how things could play out, right? They're
Yeah.
really good historic data points, and they're a great way to kind of perhaps give you a range of options for what might happen with where things are. So you mentioned this 3-0 start for the Steelers, right? I
Yes.
went all the way back to 2000. We have three 3-0 starts in that period. 2020, we obviously started the season 11-0. Then we dropped the last 4 or 5.
Yeah.
We did win the division, but we lost to the Browns in the wild card playoff in week 1 or in the first week of the playoffs. 2010, we went 12-4. We also won the division. We made it all the way to the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl to the Green Bay Packers. Prior to that, 2007, we went 10-6. We won the division. We also lost the wild card playoff round. So the science lesson here is those are our three analogs for 2024 season, right? Three 3-0 starts in the last, you can call it 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Win the division all three of those years. 10-6, 11-0, 12-4. Sorry, 11-0 is not right. That's 15-1. 15-1, 12-4, and 10-6. Two losses in the wild card round, one loss in the Super Bowl. So, my question to you, hearing that and getting that little bit of a science lesson, do you think that these are good analogs? Do you think that these are reasonable, that we can expect this, winning the division, making playoffs, in one case out of the three, making the Super Bowl? What are your thoughts?
I think if you look at your analogs and then all of the analytical numbers, all the signs point to yes. Now, I will say I do want to, I don't want to get too excited. We've talked about it moving into the season that we have a much easier beginning of the schedule and a much harder end of the schedule. Now, with the way our division looks, maybe our end of schedule won't be as bad. But I think it is good analogs, good historical data. But at the same time, you never know. I mean, when you look at some of these teams' records, how good they are, the Ravens at 1-2, the Bengals at 0-3, it makes you question if it will come true. I'm hopeful, but I'm hesitant, I guess is the way I'll put it.
Okay, for what it's worth, I think these are all great analog years. I do, and I think that
That's good. I like that.
I think seeing this start, double-digit wins, winning the division, and making the playoffs are realistic possibilities.
Yeah.
Realistic for sure
Oh yeah,
possibilities.
definitely.
Um, I think that yeah, we definitely could do that and achieve that. Now, will will we make it past the first round of the playoffs? Will we make it to the Super Bowl? Much bigger fish to fry and things to think about when you get to that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a Super Bowl caliber team where you're going to be able to compete with some of the huge guns. I would love to see if we can put 30 points on the board. We're not going to go down that route yet because I don't
No.
see that as being a concern just yet. But I think this could be, again, sitting here week 3. We haven't played great teams by any means,
Sure.
but I think this could be a year where we can win a playoff game
Yeah. I mean, I think making the playoffs is very reasonable for us at this point in time,
and winning a game.
and potentially winning a game. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was your science lesson. Hope you enjoyed it. You want me to hit you with a couple listener questions?
Sure.
Okay. Got one from my buddy Sam. You know Sam. Um, his question, why is Russell Wilson dressed to play? He's injured, but he's dressed to play.
That's a good question, Sam. After week one, that was one of the talks of social media. It's because he's the emergency third quarterback. So in the NFL nowadays, you can have an emergency third quarterback where they dress because if the first two quarterbacks get hurt, they play. They obviously feel that he's well enough to, if needed, play, but not play on his own. So that's why he's dressed. It's not just a Russell Wilson bit.
Okay. Not a Russell Wilson bet. All right, Sam. Hopefully that answers that question for you. Next question. The second question here comes from another friend of mine, Chris. He is inquiring about whether or not the Steelers should make a trade for a wide receiver. And so he brought up a couple names. Pittman on the Colts hasn't been utilized very well in the Indianapolis playbook this year. He got a new contract. He's 26 years old. Christian Watson from Green Bay, a lot of talent in a young guy like that. Do you think there's any possibility that the Pittsburgh Steelers could or should trade for any of these guys? Do you think that we're still looking for that wide receiver too?
Oh yeah. I think the con artist is looking into all potential options. Now, I will say the first name, who was the first name?
Michael Pittman.
Yes, Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman and Christian Watson, I never thought of. I like both of those players. I think they both would fit us. I don't see either of them being very likely to come to us. The name that was being thrown
Don't
around
say Devontae Adams.
before Monday, no, was Terry McLaurin, but he ended up being very much utilized in the Monday Night Football game against the Bengals. So I don't think he's an option. Devontae Adams is a name. Yeah, I think they're going to have to pay too much to get him, and he's old. The guy I think we should go out and get, and I don't know why he's not a Pittsburgh Steeler yet, is John Mechie. John Mechie's a third-year player, I
On the
believe,
Texans?
on the Texans. Guy out of Alabama. Rookie year, he had leukemia, so he missed his entire rookie year, but he's fought back, and he's a good young player that can play in the slot, and he's a little bit of a jitterbug. He's a healthy scratch for them and has been all three games because of how deep they are at receiver. He's never going to play on that team. He's just wasting space. I don't know why we haven't gone out and got him. So to answer the question, specifically, yes, I think we are looking, and I think John Mechie, in my opinion, is the most likely target.
Interesting. Okay, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate here. I think Roman Wilson is coming back pretty soon. I think he's
Yeah.
we're probably gonna see him play before the bye week, and I think we might kind of be in a wait and see mode to see if someone like that is gonna make any
Do you
contributions.
think week four?
I didn't hear anything. Great question. Both you and I thought that he was gonna play week 3, so I could see it as a possibility.
Tomlin made it seem like that he's waiting his opportunity and he needs to snatch it when he gets it. I
Okay.
thought that was interesting, but he did make the comment he wanted to go big up front. So maybe he does get it week four.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens there. Anything else you want to address before we jump into a little bit of a Colts preview here?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, so just really quick off the bat, Colts 1-2. This game is in Indianapolis. It's the second year in a row that we played at Indianapolis, and someone told me it might be the third year in a row.
It
I
is
feel
the
like
third.
we've been playing the Colts for a while and haven't played super well against them.
No.
Colts are 1-2 this year. They are coming off, I believe, of a pretty solid win against the Chicago Bears. Pretty hard fought last week. Hey, the Bears? Huh?
No. Hard fought's the better way to say it.
Hard fought's the better way to say it. Steelers are opening as 1.5 point underdogs. Total
Really?
over under. No, sorry, 1.5 point favorites. One and a
Okay.
half point favorites. Over under here is 39.5. Pretty even matchup on paper, I guess, given some of the statistics there. I can go ahead and kind of call out some of these strong players that they have on their team. Anthony Richardson, a second-year quarterback, mobile guy, makes some incredible throws, also makes some awful throws, could be looked at as the best quarterback in the league or the worst. A lot of
Yeah.
inconsistency we see with him. But one thing that I think the Colts are going to probably challenge us with is they have a really strong offensive line and they have a really good running back in Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Couple good wide receivers. We mentioned Michael Pittman. Alex Pierce is a guy who can stretch the field. Josh Downs, guy from UNC, really, really good slot receiver as well. So the Colts definitely have their fair share of weapons on offense. What do you got in terms of stats or how we kind of stack up against them?
Yeah, I mean, this match is pretty much what you were saying. They're the 11th best rushing team offensively. They're 24th in the pass, so they haven't gotten the passing game going. Anthony Richardson has struggled a little bit. They're 17th in points per game, having averaging 19.3. Defensively, they're actually the 21st team against the pass, and the 31st ranked team against the run.
Oh,
So, I mean, we are the 12th best rushing team. We obviously know the Steelers' DNA is to run the ball, and so let's try to see if we can make some noise and get some. I mean, they're giving up 180 yards per game on the ground, which is a lot. So hopefully we can take advantage of that. To kind of go into some predictions here, I know last week I went kind of crazy and said we win 20-17. I was correct on the 20, wrong on the 17, but that would have been for the over.
hmm.
I'm not crazy enough to do that again this week. I think I'm done thinking the Steelers games are going to go over. Although, actually, to be honest with you, what did you say the over under was?
39 and a half.
My prediction is actually the same total points as last week. It's 37. So I will be, I guess I would be betting the under there. But I think the Steelers win 24-13. I think we get another two-score victory. I think we cause some problems for Anthony Richardson in this Colts offense, and I think we pound the rock. And I'll throw out my bold prediction here and then
Yeah.
hand it over to you. This might not be that bold, especially after I just said they give up 180 yards per game. But Najee Harris has been very consistent through the first 2 weeks. Week 1, he had 70 yards. Week 2, he had 69 yards. Week 3, he had 70 yards. We had briefly said that he was in a sling this week. Looks like he's going to be okay to go on Sunday. My bold prediction is he has 100 plus yards and a touchdown on Sunday against the Colts.
On the ground.
100 plus yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown.
Okay. I like it, and I think it's very, very feasible. I'm excited that you feel that way about the Steelers going into this game. I think we can pull this out. I'm optimistic here.
Yeah,
My bold prediction, so to say, is going to be this will be a multiple turnover game for Anthony Richardson.
love that.
Whether or not that's a couple interceptions, a couple strip sacks,
If
I
I
think
was
it's going to be
allowed to give a second one, I was going to say Minka Fitzpatrick interception. So
okay.
right
Okay.
in line with you.
I think it's going to be a multiple turnover game. Dare I say three? That let's do it. Let's make it bold, right? I'm going to say three turnover game for the Indianapolis Colts from Anthony Richardson. So I think there's a reasonable chance that could happen.
Yeah.
He already has 6 interceptions on the season. I'm not sure what his fumble stat is, but pretty low completion percentage, a little under 50% for him. So got to watch him on the ground and be aware that he can make some throws. But I think he's mistake prone, and the way our defense is playing, I think, especially coming off a no turnover game, I think they're going to be hungry
Yeah, he had two fumbles in week 2, so definitely fumble worthy or could fumble.
for sure. All right, cool. Well, this was a great episode. I may or may not have spent $150 on the Steelers shop today buying some gear. So I'll have
They
to
got
put
you
that gear in.
excited. 3-0 start got you going.
Hey, 30% off today only. So I had to capitalize.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm excited. It's fun to be 3-0, and we'll see where this game takes us against the Colts. So as always, we thank you all for listening. Hopefully you're watching us on YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your family, like and subscribe. We haven't said that before, so like and subscribe. Can we do
Yeah.
this below? I don't know who's on what side, but like and subscribe below. And thanks as always for listening to The Real Steel. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone. Peace.